Start, like if you need to grab breakfast, you could go grab breakfast. Just feel free to. It's on, the mic is on. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salamu ala rasulillah, ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala, thumma amma ba'd. To proceed, today inshallah we will have the chapter of al-Haya, or the station of al-Haya, in Manaazil As-Saa'ireen, Stations of the Wayfarers, a book written by Imam al-Harawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, Abu Ismail, Abdullah al-Ansari, al-Harawi, who was from Herat, current Afghanistan, who died in the year 481 after Hijrah. And his book is 100 stations. We have covered 83 of the 100 stations. Today we will cover station number 84. We have 16 stations, inshallah, to finish the book. In this station, station 84, or chapter 84, he talks about al-Haya. It's titled al-Haya, or life. The Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala started by saying, قال الله عز وجل, أَوَ مَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ. Allah the Almighty said, and is one who was dead, and we give him life. And the Shaykh usually just quotes part of the ayah, because the whole book is meant to be brief and is meant to be easy to memorize, so that's why it's a very brief book, almost a ciphered book that needs to be deciphered. The rest of the ayah is in Surah Al-An'am, وَمَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا يَمْشِي بِهِ فِي النَّاسِ كَمَنْ مَثَلُهُ فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ لَيْسَ بِخَارِجٍ مِنْهَا كَذَلِكَ زُيِّنَ لِلْكَافِرِينَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. وَمَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ is one who was dead, and then we gave him life. فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ كَمَنْ مَثَلُهُ فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ, like one who is in the darknesses, لَيْسَ بِخَارِجٍ مِنْهَا, never to emerge therefrom, from the darknesses. كذلك زين الكافرين ما كانوا يعملون. أو من كان ميتا فأحييناه وجعلنا له نورا. أو من كان ميتا فأحييناه is one who was dead and we give him light. يمشي به في الناس, to walk with it among the people. A light with which he deals with the people, a light with which he interacts with the people, a light with which he walks among the people. So he was dead, and Allah gave him the light of guidance, the light of the revelation. يمشي به في الناس كمن مثله في الظلمات, like one who is in the darknesses, ليس بخارج منها, never to emerge therefrom. كذلك زين الكافرين ما كانوا يعملون. Thus it has been adorned, or has been made to appear beautiful for the disbelievers or the unbelievers, that which they used to do. So we adorned their misdeeds to them, and that's a great punishment. أَفَمَنْ زُيِّنَ لَهُ سُوءُ عَمَلِهِ فَرَآهُ حَسَنًا. Have you seen the one whose misdeeds or bad deeds or evil deeds have been adorned for him? And he saw them beautiful. He saw his misdeeds beautiful. And that's basically one of the severest punishments for bad deeds. Anyway, the Shaykh is talking now about a different type of haya, of course, not the physical haya that we know of, but he's talking about the haya of the spirit, the haya of the heart, the true haya, the real haya. Because if we are originally spirits that were granted bodies, that were given bodies, then without the spirits we don't have real life, even if our bodies are functional, or by definition alive. This is not the real life. And we do recognize the difference between different types of life, even in in that physical life, we do recognize the difference between tissue life. You could have tissues that are alive well after you die. We have vegetative life, the persistent vegetative state. Those who are familiar with medical terms, when people have no input or output, but they are still having the physiological functions to be alive. And then we have, basically the sentient locomotive life, where there is input and output. So we do recognize there are different types of life. All of those different types of life that we as human beings can have, we have tissue life, we have the vegetative life, and we have the sentient locomotive life. All of those lives are not real lives without the life of the spirit, without the life of the spirit. Then the Shaykh talks about the different levels of life. He says, اسم الحياة في هذا الباب يشار به إلى ثلاثة أشياء. The name life in this respect is used in reference to three things. The name life in this respect is used in reference to three things. And then he will talk about the three levels that he usually talks about, but maybe we should talk first about the different types of life that Imam ibn Qayyim rahimahullah mentioned in Manaazil As-Saa'irīn. So he mentions the first type of life, and he mentions actually 10 different types of life, and you could add to them many more. It depends on how you classify life, or how you classify the different levels of life. You could actually take out some, you could add some. Classifications usually are meant for what? To broaden your horizon, to give you more insight into the subject. But classifications are not tawqifi, they are not traceable to the Prophet ﷺ. You don't have to religiously believe in classifications, the classifications of the scholars. They're just meant to facilitate the understanding of the subject for us. So Imam ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala says in Manaazil As-Saa'ireen, which is the commentary of Imam al-Harawi's Manaazil As-Saa'ireen, rahimahumullah ta'ala, he says that there are the 10 different types of life. He mentions the first type of life is the life of earth. الله الذي أنزل من السماء ماء فأحيا به الأرض بعد موتها إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يسمعون. This is in Surah An-Nahl. والله أنزل من السماء ماء والله أنزل من السماء ماء فأحيا به الأرض بعد موتها إن في ذلك لآية لقوم يسمعون. And Allah brought down from the heavens water with which He gave life to the earth after its death. Verily there is a sign in this for people who have hearing. الله أنزل من السماء ماء فأحيا به الأرض بعد موتها. So he described this he described this phenomenon to be life, after death, life of the earth after death. When Allah brings down water from the heavens, He gives life to the earth after this. والله أنزل من السماء ماء فأحيا به الأرض بعد موتها. And in Surah فصلت ومن آياته أنك ترى الأرض خاشعة فإذا أنزلنا عليها الماء اهتزت وربت إن الذي أحياها لمحيي الموتى إنه على كل شيء قدير. ومن آياته أنك ترى الأرض خاشعة, and it is one of His signs that you see the land still. فإذا أنزلنا عليها الماء اهتزت وربت. So once we bring down water onto it, it quivers and it increases, it grows. إن الذي أحياها لمحيي الموتى. Verily, the one who gave it life. You see how Allah is using the life of the earth, giving life to the earth after it was dead, to tell us that He is capable of giving life to the dead as well. Resurrection. إن الذي أحياها لمحيي الموتى. Verily, the one who gave it life will give life to the dead. إنه على كل شيء قدير. He is all capable over all things. And in Surah Yasin, ومن آياته الأرض الميتة وأحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون. And it is one of His signs, or one of His signs is the dead land. أحييناها ومن آيات الأرض الميتة, the dead land, أحييناها, we gave it life. وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون, and we brought forth grains for their sustenance, for their nutrition, their sustenance, from which they eat. All of these are basically different ayat that talk about the life of the earth after it was dead. So that's why Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah talked about the life of the earth. But is the life of the earth, is it a real life? If Allah said it is, then it is. So, but what does that mean? It means the potency to host life. It means the potency to host life. Allah called it life because it has the potency to host life. So once water comes down to the earth, it becomes alive, meaning it has the potency to host life. That's why there's the mention of, وَخَرَجْنَا مِنْهَا حَبًّا فَمِنْهُ يَأْكُلُونَ, and then we bring forth grains from which they eat. So that's the first type of life, the life of the earth. من آياته أنك ترى الأرض خاشعة فإذا أنزلنا عليها الماء اهتزت وربت إن الذي يحياها لمحيي الموتى إنه على كل شيء قدير الله أنزل من السماء ماء فأحيا به الأرض بعد موتها إن في ذلك لآية لقوم يسمعون ومن آياته الأرض الميتة وأحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون. So the life of the earth basically is the potency to host life. We do call it real life because Allah called it life, so we call it life. And then the second type of life that he mentions is, which life would you expect next? The vegetative life. That's حياة النمو والاغتذاء. حياة النمو والاغتذاء, it's the plant life or the vegetative life. Namu means growth, اغتذاء means nutrition, where you receive, like you are dependent on nutrition and you grow with nutrition. So namu والاغتذاء, it's the vegetative life, and that is the plant life. And then the third life would be what is the third life? It's the animate life, the sentient life. Sentient meaning sensation, feeling, that you are capable of feeling, perceiving feelings. So sentient life. It's sentient and locomotive, meaning there is sentience and locomotion. You are moving and capable of perceiving feelings. So the sentient locomotive life is the third life. And that's basically our lives as human beings. Our basic life as human beings is this low on, it's down there. And he gives this category, which is the third category of life, to every animate being. Every animate being. All animals, mosquitoes, share with us this life. So we, snakes, mosquitoes, lions, mice, every animate being. In fact, certainly I told you that the classifications are not traceable to the Prophet ﷺ, or it's not part of their religion to believe in classification, or these classifications, the classifications of the scholars, not traceable to the Prophet ﷺ. So you could certainly say that this is not one layer. You could divide it into different layers. But Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah says that within this one layer there is huge tafawut, there is a huge discrepancy between the life of mosquitoes, the life of animals, higher animals, and life of human beings. You could also say that bacteria, for instance, and viruses, are viruses alive? They're more alive than prions. Prions, mad cow disease. Mad cow disease used to be, they used to feed the cows basically the dead flesh of other cows that died, because based on sort of capitalism. You just don't waste anything. You use everything to maximize your profit. So when cows died, they basically incinerated them, and they felt that this would be enough to kill all bacteria and viruses. And then later they discovered that prions, which are less alive than viruses. You know, viruses are harder to kill because they are not as alive as bacteria. Prions are even less alive than viruses. So they were not, through this incineration process, they were actually not destroyed, and they survived. And then they were transmitted to the other cows that ate the dead flesh or carcasses of their friends. And then we had the mad cow disease problem, and they stopped that particular ugly habit. We know that we have something in Islam called the jallala, which is the animal that is fed najasat or impurities. Anyway, so there could be different layers of life within this sentient locomotive life, but we just consider it one layer for simplicity. It's the third layer. We belong here, not our spiritual lives, but basically our physical, physiological, biological, at the biological level, we belong in this layer, third, with the mosquitoes and mice and everything. And then there is the fourth life. And the fourth life is the creatures like the angels who do not have bodies, so they don't have the flaws of the bodies. They're not flawed. Many of our difficulties and troubles in this life are caused by our bodies, our deficiencies, our flaws, our shortcomings are caused by the lives, by our bodies. And then these particular creatures, the angels, they don't have bodies, so they don't suffer from those flaws. So he considers their life to be, higher than ours, for sure, because they are bodiless creatures. So they don't have the defects of bodies that we have, or the flaws and shortcomings of bodies that we have. And then number 5 is what the Shaykh here talks about in the first level. الحياة الأولى حياة العلم من موت الجهل ولها 3 أنفاس. The first life is coming to life by knowledge from the death of ignorance. It is the life coming to life through or by knowledge from the death of ignorance. And that's the first that's the first layer that the Shaykh talks about, because he is not interested in other forms of life, the biological forms of life. So it is the 5th level in our 10-tiered classification of life of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala. So what's the 6th one? The 6th one is Hayatul Irada wal Himma. It is the Haya of resolve and aspiration. Haya of resolve and aspiration. It's not only enough that you have knowledge, but do you have resolve, determination? Do you have aspiration? Do you have himma? Do you have irada? Do you have willpower to do what is right? That's a different type of life, and you want basically to harness this life inside you there's so many things with which you could harness this life inside you, but of these things is tark al-dhunub. Abdullah ibn Mubarak said, رأيت الذنوب تميت القلوب وقد يورث الذل إدمانها وترك الذنوب حياة القلوب وخير لنفسك عصيانها. Basically, dhunub would be the afat, would be the diseases that would bring about destruction and bring about death to our willpower, to our resolve, to our determination. Why are we weaker? Why are we less capable than our righteous predecessors? Because to a great extent because of our hawa, our desires, our biases, our dhunub that made us weaker. رَأَيْتُ الذُّنُوبَ تُمِيتُ الْقُلُوبَ. I have seen that dhunub or sins bring death to the hearts. وَقَدْ يُورِثُ الذُّلَّ إِدْمَانُهَا. And being addicted to them is a cause of disgrace or brings about disgrace and humility. وَتَرْكُ الذُّنُوبِ حَيَاةُ الْقُلُوبِ وَخَيْرٌ لِنَفْسِكَ عَصِيَانُهَا. And the abandonment of sin is the cause of the life of the hearts, and it is better for yourself to disobey yourself. It's better for you to disobey yourself. It's better for yourself. خَيْرٌ لِنَفْسِكَ عَصِيَانُهَا. It's better for yourself that you disobey yourself. And then he talks about the other type of life, which is the seventh type of life, and he talks about the moral life. The moral life. And he means by this, and you could say that this may be a little bit redundant here because, we're talking about coming to the life of knowledge from the darkness of ignorance. Isn't this enough? Doesn't it include also the life of determination, that life of irada and himma, determination, resolve, and aspiration? And does it also include that moral life? Well, you could say that, but you could also say that he wanted to emphasize certain concepts. One of them is that each one of those morals or manners is a life in and of itself. It adds to your life. You are more alive when you acquire those virtuous morals or morals of virtue. So courage by itself is a moral that adds to your life. You are more alive. Alive if you are courageous. Haya, modesty, is a life in and of itself. It adds to your life. You are more alive if you are modest. Humbleness, generosity, everything, all of those morals, chastity, all of those morals, they add different dimensions to your life, so you have more life, you are more alive, the more you acquire of those great morals. That's the moral life. Each one of them is a life in and of itself. And then he talks about the spiritual life, which is the life that the Shaykh. Now, this life, you're basically drawing it from the source of life. This is the eighth type of life here. It is your spiritual life. Spiritual life. So after the moral life, he talks about spiritual life, and that is basically when you lose yourself. It would be to the Shaykh here as a phase after fana, after you have completely, and certainly we agree with the Shaykh that many aspects of fana must be realized, must be actualized prior to having this life. So many aspects of losing yourself, losing your ego to have حياة طيبة. من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن. Yeah, Ibn Qayyim calls it al-Farah al-Surur, but I'm calling it spiritual life. Yeah. Just to give it like some distinction from, because Ibn Qayyim calls it Hayat al-Farah al-Surur, basically happiness and rejoicing. But he means by this, the spiritual life that you will have after you lose your ego, after you lose yourself. And like we said, the fana is not a necessary bridge to baqa or self-subsistence, but certainly many elements of fana are necessary to cross to baqa or self-subsistence, as we said so many times before. But this is the time when you are basically, your life is dependent on the source. ولا يزال عبدي يتقرب إلي بالنوافل حتى أحبه فإذا أحببته كنت سمعه الذي يسمع به وبصره الذي يبصر به ويده التي يبطش بها ورجله التي يمشي بها ولئن سألني لأعطينه ولئن استعاذني لأعيذنه. So this is the life where, when my servant would continue to draw closer to me until I love him, and once I have loved him, or once I love him, I will be his hearing with which he hears, his sight with which he sees, his hand with which he strikes, his leg with which he walks. And if he asks me, or if he invokes me, I will grant him his wishes, and if he seeks refuge in me, I will grant him protection. I will grant him protection. So that type of life is basically hayat al-baqa. It is basically subsisting by Allah. It is basically after you have lost yourself and you found Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hayat al-wujud, which is the procurement, the actualization, the finding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by losing yourself. Remember, very early we said that Abu Yazid al-Bustami rahimahullah ta'ala said that I had seen Allah in a dream, and I asked him, how do I come to you? He said, you will never be able to reach me until you lose yourself. And then I stripped myself, my ego, off like a snake strips off her skin. So this is the life. This is the ultimate life in this world. It's the life of baqa, self-subsistence after losing one's self. And this is the life that basically draws from the life of the source, the alive. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum, la ta'khudhuhu sinatun wa la nawm. Allah la ilaha illa huwa, there is no deity but him, al-hayyul qayyum, the alive, the living, al-qayyum, the self-subsistent. So truly, the real life is Allah's. All of our lives are contingent, dependent, unnecessary, disposable. The real life is Allah's life. Therefore, any life short of this life is not the real life. And in this 8th phase, the Ibn Qayyim mentions in Manaazil As-Saa'irīn, this is your life of baqa, self-subsistence by Allah, for Allah, with Allah, by Allah, for Allah, with Allah. So this is the 8th level of life, hayat al-baqa. A spiritual life, what Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah calls hayat al-farah as-surur, rejoicing and happiness. And then the 9th type of life, and then we keep in mind that we're talking about the 10 types of life that are not the life of the divine, that are not the divine life. Because when it comes to the divine life, you can't add this as a layer. Can you add this as a layer? You say that the 11th type of life is the divine life. But it's not a layer because it is not of that type whatsoever. There is no comparison, no comparability between Allah's life and our lives. Our lives are, like I said, contingent, not necessary, not wajib, and disposable. So then Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah talks about the next level of life, the 9th level of life, which is not attained in this world, because that's when you lose your body. That is the life in the barzakh. That is in the life in the life after death, and before the hereafter. That is in that phase between this life and. So he actually calls it maut. He actually considers maut, which is death, a higher level of life, and he justifies this. We know that al-qabr rawda min riyad al-jannah wa hufra min hufra an-nar. The grave is like a garden of the gardens of paradise, or a hole of the holes of hellfire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah al-Waqi'ah, فَأَمَّا إِنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْمُقَرَّبِينَ فَرَوْحٌ وَرَيْحَانٌ وَجَنَّةُ نَعِيمٍ. فلولا إذا بلغت الحلقوم وأنتم حينئذ تنظرون ونحن أقرب إليه منكم ولكن لا تبصرون فلولا إن كنتم غير مدينين ترجعونها إن كنتم صادقين فأما إن كان من المقربين فروح وريحان وجنة نعيم. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about the soul leaving the body, and he said that once it reaches the throat, bring it back if you are, he challenged them, bring it back if you are not to be held accountable. In kuntum ghayra madinin, if you are not to be brought back and to be held accountable, keep it, bring it back. Keep the soul, or bring it back. And then Allah said, فَأَمَّا إِن كَانَ مِنَ الْمُقَرَّبِينَ. Then He talked about the different souls. فَأَمَّا إِن كَانَ مِنَ الْمُقَرَّبِينَ, if he is فَأَمَّا إِن كَانَ مِنَ الْمُقَرَّبِينَ, if he is one of the muqarrabin, which are the ones who are brought near. It means near, but it's not qareeb, it's muqarrab. It's in the passive voice to tell you that basically you cannot you cannot make it on your own. You can't come close just by you wanting to come close. That you have to be brought closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have to be invited. You have to be brought closer. أَمَّا إِن كَانَ مُقَرَّبِينَ. That's why it's in the passive voice. فَأَمَّا إِن كَانَ مُقَرَّبِينَ, if he is one of those who were brought close or near, فَرَوْحٌ وَرَيْحَانٌ وَجَنَّةُ نَعِيمٍ. فَرَوْحٌ وَرَيْحَانٌ, then for them will be rawh, which is relief. Rayhan means here soothing comfort. وَجَنَّةُ نَعِيمٍ, and a garden of bliss. And a garden of bliss. So immediately, you just, once you leave this life, immediately you get to enjoy a higher level of life. And that's why we Muslims think of, why we Muslims should not have this much fear from death. Certainly, as Aisha said, no one likes to die. But we should not have this much sort of like an anxiety or fear from death. In fact, our righteous predecessors, wishing for death is not the highest station. Wishing for death is not even permissible to wish for death because of difficulties that you encounter in life, because of disease or poverty or difficulties you encounter of life. It's prohibited to wish for death because of difficulty, because that shows your lack of rida, your lack of acceptance of Allah's decrees. But wishing for death out of fear from fitna, trials in your deen, losing faith, is permissible. But the best of the stations is tafweed in this regard, in this respect, which is basically to defer this to Allah, and just to not wish for death or life. Remember, we did mention before when Sufyan al-Thawri and Yusuf ibn Asbat and Wahib ibn al-Ward were sitting together, and Sufyan al-Thawri said, I wish I would die before I get tried in my deen. And Yusuf ibn Asbat said, I wish to live to perhaps I'll be able to repent and increase in my good deeds. And then Wahib ibn al-Ward beat them both by saying, أحبهما إليه أحبهما إلي. So he said, what's more beloved to him is more beloved to me. I don't wish to live, I don't wish to die. What is more beloved to him, to God, is more beloved to me. It's up to him. I don't even want to have any, I want to completely sort of surrender to his will. That I don't want to have a wish of my own. If he wants to keep me, then I'm happy, I'm content. And if he wants to take me back, I'm content with that as well. So to be neutral about it. And as long as you're here, you're doing your best, you're ready, but you're doing your best as long as you're here, for yourself, for your family, community, for the world, for humanity, to just, and then to not also, many times we say to ourselves, I don't belong to this age, or I don't belong to this era. I wish I were born in the sort of 7th century or 6th century, 3rd, 2nd. But tafweed, or to delegate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is about being content with his choices. Well, he wanted you to come now. He wanted you to live in this era. So tafweed is to be completely content with all of his choices, including that. But this idea of death not being the end, death being a phase, is an idea that our righteous predecessors comprehended very well. And then they would not be particularly afraid. Sometimes they would welcome it, and we did say what is best. But so, like, you know, a poet said, "Jazallahu anna al-mawta khayran fa innahu abarru bina min kulli barrin wa altafu. يخلص يعجل تخليص النفوس من الأذى ويدني من الدار التي هي أشرف. جزا الله عنا الموت خيرا فإنه أبر بنا من كل بر وألطف. يعجل تخليص النفوس من الأذى ويدني إلى الدار التي هي أشرف." So may Allah reward death on our behalf. فإنه, for it is, أبر بنا من كل بر وألطف. He is gentler, he's kinder to us than the kindest and the most gentle of people. يعجل تخليص النفوس من الأذى. He brings closer relief from all harm. ويدني إلى الدار التي هي أشرف, and brings us closer to the abode that is nobler, the nobler abode, or the more honorable abode, which is the 10th layer of life, that is the life in the hereafter. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah al-Ankabut, وَمَا هَذِهِ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَهْوٌ وَلَعِبٌ وَإِنَّ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ لَهِيَ الْحَيَوَانُ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. وَمَا هَذِهِ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيا إِلَّا لَهْوٌ وَلَعِبٌ وَإِنَّ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ لَهِيَ الْحَيَوَانُ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. And the life of this world is nothing but amusement and play. وَإِنَّ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ, but the hereafter, لَهِيَ الْحَيَوَانُ. The hayawan is a superlative from haya. It's a superlative from haya. Which means here, could mean here different things according to the commentators and mufassirin. Could mean eternal, could mean real, could mean all blessed. But it just means it is the real life. Because it's an eternal life. And any life that's temporary, any life where you see changes in your body every day while you're growing, you'll start to notice this once you hit 40. It's not really the real life. You know, life is being taken away from you from the time you're born. You have 70% of your body water. Doesn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say water is life? Water is the source of life? أَلَمْ يَرَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ كَانَتَا رَتْقًا فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ أَفَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. And we made of, didn't the disbelievers in Surah Al-Anbiya, Allah say, didn't the unbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were one mass, and we split them up, and then we made of water everything that is living. We made of water everything that is living. Don't they believe? Will they not believe? So water is the source of life, and when you're born, you have 70% of your body is made out of water, and when you die, it's about 50%, particularly if you die senile. So, and this happens basically from day one. Life is being taken away from you from the time you come out. The moment you come out, life is being taken away from water. You're losing water. Don't you know that, mothers know that? And the newborns, they lose weight initially. So this is metaphorical, but for using life. But it is using life. You actually dry out, just like Allah said in Surah Al-Hadid, أَعْلَمُ أَنَّمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا لَعِبٌ وَلَهْوٌ وَزِينَةٌ وَتَفَاخُرٌ بَيْنَكُمْ وَتَكَاثُرٌ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ كَمَثَلِ غَيْثٍ أَعْجَبَ الْكُفَّارَ نَبَاتُهُ ثُمَّ يَهِيجُ فَتَرَاهُ مُصْفَرًّا ثُمَّ يَكُونُ حُطَامًا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ وَمَغْفِرَةٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرِضْوَانٌ وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. So know that the life of this world is about play and amusement. لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر and adornment and glitters and mutual boasting, seeking abundance in offspring and property and wealth. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave our lives that parable. كَمَثَلِ غَيْثٍ أَعْجَبَ الْكُفَّارَ نَبَاتُهُ, like a rain, the vegetation therewith pleases, the vegetation that comes therewith or therefrom pleases the kuffar. Pleases what? The farmers here. Kuffar means the farmers here. Pleases the farmers because it's green and pleasant, and then ثم يهيج فتراهم مصفرا, and then they dry out, and that's what we exactly go through. We dry out. ثم يكون حطاما, it crumbles away. The vegetations will crumble away. That's exactly what we go through, and we also crumble away. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Ankabut says, إِنَّ الدَّارَ الْأَخِيرَةَ لَهِيَ الْحَيَوَانِ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ, only if they know. And the life of the hereafter is the true life, is the real life, only if they know. So these are the 10 different types of life that Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah mentions in the Madarij. Let's go back to what the Shaykh says here. الحياة الأولى حياة العلم من موت الجهل ولها ثلاثة أنفاس. The first life is coming to life by knowledge from the death of ignorance, and it has 3 breaths. So certainly breathing is a sign of life. And he considers these 3 breaths to be the signs of that first life, or the first level that the Shaykh talks about here, which is haya of knowledge, to be delivered from the death of ignorance into the light of knowledge. ولها ثلاثة أنفاس, and it has 3 breaths. نفس الخوف ونفس الرجاء ونفس المحبة, the breath of fear, the breath of hope, and the breath of love. والحياة الثانية حياة الجمع من موت التفرقة ولها ثلاثة أنفاس. Certainly الحياة الأولى, the Shaykh always keeps the first level for knowledge, right? For proper knowledge, for good beneficial knowledge. The first level is for good beneficial knowledge and the effects of the good beneficial knowledge. And the signs that your knowledge has benefited you is that you have the blessed triad of حب and خوف and رجاء. The blessed triad of love, fear, and hope. You fear from Allah's anger, you wish in, or you hope in Allah's reward, and above all, you are in love with Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he talks about الحياة الثانية حياة الجمع من موت التفرقة ولها ثلاثة أنفاس. The second level is coming to life through Jama'. That's the union. That's the togetherness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the union here is not the union of the third phase that he usually talks about, because he keeps this for the third phase. The union here is your holism, your wholeness, your togetherness, your unfractured will. You are together. You have one goal, you have one focus, you have an unfractured will. And that is what he means here by union. It is your togetherness and your unfractured will, seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and basically undistracted focus. Your focus is all together. So that is al-jama' in this phase. That is the phase where he usually talks about al-ahwal, or the inner states. So that is the jama' of your inner state. You are collected, you are together, focused on your ultimate goal. Min maut al-tafriqa, it is the life of togetherness, jama' or union, jama' from the death of dispersion. Dispersion is when you have fractured will, when you have distractions, when you are distracted by the diversity of phenomena around you. ولها ثلاثة أنفاس, and it has 3 breaths. نفس الاضطرار ونفس الافتقار ونفس liftikhar. Has three breaths: the breath of dependence, the breath of need, and the breath of pride. And because we spend so much time talking about the 10 layers of life that Ibn al-Qayyim mentions in Madarij, we will have to, inshallah, go a little bit quicker here. But these are, the emphasis here is on the inner state. And in the inner state, he talks about the breath of dependence and the breath of need. Ibn al-Qayyim considers them to be one breath. It has a beginning and an end. But it is basically contrast this with the breath of iftikhar, which is nafas al-iftikhar, the breath of pride. He's saying to you that without Allah, you feel your vulnerability, your destituteness, your poverty, your weakness, your fragility, your ittirar, your need, and with Allah, you are feeling, so this is talking about the same level. You are feeling everything in the same level here. And with Allah, you have the breath of pride, joy, comfort, confidence, combined in one state, in one had, in one inner state. Like with Him, without Him. And it is not only with Him, it is with Him, by Him. It's with Him, by Him. With Allah, by Allah, you have nafas al-iftikhar, which is not certainly the nafas of arrogance or self-conceit or anything, but it is the nafas or the breath of rejoicing in your servitude, in your ubudiyyah, rejoicing in your acceptance, in your rida of Allah's decrees, and your confidence, in His future decrees. That will take away an anxiety from your heart. So it is the same nafas, dependence and need without Allah, and with and by Allah, it is nafas al-iftikhar, or the breath of pride. And then he says, وَالْحَيَاةُ الثَّالِثَةُ حَيَاةُ الْوُجُودِ وَهِيَ حَيَاةٌ بِالْحَقِّ وَلَهَا ثَلَاثَةُ أَنْفَاسٍ. The third life is the life of actualization. Wujud is procurement. It is when you gain, you earn, you find. Wajada means to find. It's when you find Allah. And that is, as I said, Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned this in which level? 8th. The haya of baqa, after you cross the bridge of fana, or losing yourself, and we did talk about how you do this. So the haya that he calls hayat al-farah wa surur, the haya of rejoicing and happiness. So this is hayat al-wujud. You find Allah. You only find Him after you lose yourself. So, but we did explain what losing yourself means here so many times. So let's not repeat it. You have lost your ego, and you have lost all of the negative, sort of the negative components of that ego. So hayatun bil-haqq, the life of actualization. That's when you actualize your faith. The reason why I translate wujud as actualization is that it is basically the closest word in English. It's complete actualization of faith. It is when you find Allah. If you want to literally translate it, you will translate it as procurement, or wujud will be finding, realization, finding, procurement. But it is the ultimate actualization of faith. The third life is the life of actualization, hayat al-wujud, wa hiya hayatun bil-haqq, and it is a life subsisting by al-haqq, the real, or the true one. Al-haqq, the real, or the true one. وَلَهَا ثَلَاثَةُ أَنْفَاسٍ, and it has three breaths. نَفَسُ الْهَيْبَةِ, and now it is all about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now when, sort of the lights of His majesty befall you, or the lights of His majesty come onto you, then the first nafas for sure, majesty and glory. The first nafas for sure, the breath is the breath of awe. which slays all flaws. It slays all of your flaws. It kills all of your sort of ends your diseases, slays your flaws. وهو يميت الاعتلال. نفس الهيبة وهو يميت الاعتلال. The breath of awe which slays all flaws. ونفس الوجود وهو يمنع الانفصال. The breath of actualization, and we talked about wujud, procurement, when you find Allah after losing yourself. ونفس الوجود, the breath of actualization, وهو يمنع الانفصال, which prevents all detachment. So never will you be distracted, never will you be detached. ونفس الانفراد وهو يورث الاتصال, the breath of singularity, وهو يورث الاتصال, which causes the attachment. وهو يورث الاتصال, which causes the attachment. That is when you recognize the one, the one true Lord, or the one true one, or the true one, the only true one, or real. وليس وراء ذلك ملحظ للنظارة ولا طاقة للإشارة. وليس وراء ذلك ملحظ للنظارة ولا طاقة للإشارة. There is nothing beyond this that can be perceived. ملحظ, تلاحظ, to perceive. There is nothing beyond this that can be perceived by the نظارة. نظارة could be the spectators, but could also be the thinkers. Spectators or thinkers. ملحظ للنظارة ولا طاقة للإشارة, or pointed out by illusions. So there is nothing beyond this that can be perceived by the spectators or pointed out by illusions. Illusions, signals, gestures. There is nothing that can basically point this out, because what the arifun, the knowers, experience cannot be described. Because in order for you to describe anything, it has to be within the human categories of understanding. Why? Because that is what language is about. Isn't language about describing our own categories of understanding? Isn't language limited to our categories of understanding? And if they experience something beyond our categories of understanding, can they express it? No. That is why they always talk about, انقطاع الإشارة, the cessation of all illusions, gestures. There is nothing that can express what they experience. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us their shafa'ah at least on the day of judgment. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.